Vengeance is mine.
Black Phone 2 hits theaters this weekend. Let's get into an early spoiler-free review of this winter set slasher sequel. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. If you like new horror movies just as much as I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more updates and reviews just like this one. Also, the best way to support this page is by becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter, where you'll receive an extra review video each week. Members are getting a whole ass video on Brian Bertino's Vicious this weekend. Thank you to my channel members and patrons. Now let's get into the review. Black Phone 2 picks up 4 years after the events of the first film in 1982, where Finney Blake is trying to deal with the trauma from his kidnapping by and killing of the Grabber. Meanwhile, his psychic sister Gwen starts having terrifying visions of mutilated children and nightmares with a phone ringing. This leads them to the frozen Alpine Lake youth camp, where horrifying connections are made between their family history and the child murderers' uprising. I gotta start this off by saying that nobody really needed a sequel to Black Phone. That was such an open and shut case that no matter what explanation they provided to create a sequel, it would just feel underwhelming. While that is unfortunately the case here a bit, I think that Scott Derrickson made one of the best Nightmare on Elm Street flicks since Wes Craven's return to that series in 1994. I'm joking, of course, but oh my god, this movie has Dream Warriors written all over it. The Grabber is basically Freddy Krueger now, attacking Gwen in her dreams alongside a new set of dead kids looking for justice. Although I did love his performance here, Ethan Hawke is shockingly not in this movie for maybe even half the time as he was in the previous film. Speaking of which, this is a totally different movie than the original Black Phone. If you were hoping for more of that, you are definitely not gonna get this here. The first Black Phone is an isolated psychological horror film. This is a straight up Freddy slasher movie. The gore and scares in this movie alone rival a lot of Derrickson's previous work as well. That's a very big high point of this one. I know some people hate these, but there is a jump scare in this flick that sent me across the damn theater. Holy shit, jump scare of the year, baby. Conjuring 4 has got nothing on this one. It's almost as good as the lawnmower scene in Sinister. We also get to see how these other kids were taken out via Scott Derrickson's iconic Super 8 footage used for the dream sequences, and man, it's tough to watch sometimes. Most of Scott Derrickson's horror flicks utilize this to make a scene more creepy. This all started back in Sinister from 2013, where those tapes found in the attic by Ethan Hawke, interestingly enough, was a bunch of grainy Super 8 footage that made those sequences way scarier. It is utilized so much here. Like, if you're a Sinister fan, you're gonna cream over this movie. It's not the first time we've seen him utilize this tool from his tool belt in other horror projects outside of Sinister, of course. We just saw him do it in VHS 85 as well as the first Black Phone. I'm making a big note of it here because, like, this is the most egregious use of it outside of Sinister. Like, half the film is shot like that, but I'm not complaining. I don't think it ever loses its luster, which is a really big deal, I think, for this movie, where that absolutely could have happened if it was handled the wrong way. Also, I've been getting this question a lot, and yes, there is a small element of this film that makes it feel like a feature-length version of his Dream Kill segment from the VHS franchise, which I recently listed as being in my top 10 from VHS segments across the board, baby. Going back to Nightmare on Elm Street for a second here, this movie also has some things from that franchise that I'm not necessarily crazy about. There is shockingly a lot of corniness and campiness to this film that again feels like a far cry from where we started with this series. There's some hit or miss humor and emotional sequences that crash and burn. One scene in particular sees the Blake family reunite after being separated for most of this film. It's directed in a way that makes it feel like a cheesy soap opera rather than the tear-jerking emotional power that was present in the previous film. My only other critique, diving a little deeper into something I was talking about before, is I don't really feel like there's a very good reason for this sequel to happen. It messes with the overall lore of this series in a way that I guess I just wasn't crazy about. However, and there is a very, very big but here, there is a really shocking scene a bit later on into this film where we get that big reveal, but it happens in a way you just would never expect. The Grabber comes to Gwen in a dream, this time not trying to attack her, but showing a little bit of kindness. He explains why he's doing all of this, and on paper, I think me just describing that to you it sounds like it wouldn't work, but honestly, it's one of the coolest scenes in the entire film. Although I don't love what this movie does to the established story, I do love this scene where the Grabber and Gwen just have a little conversation. It's some of the best drama in the whole damn flick. Maybe even some of the scariest stuff too, as Ethan Hawke recounts what it's like to be in an icy version of hell. Chilling stuff here, no pun intended. We also gotta talk a little bit about the updated versions of these characters, which I also have some mixed feelings on. On one hand, you have Mason Timms once again delivering an excellent performance, diving deeper into the psyche of a tortured character. We sadly see Finney go down a similar route of his father, relying on a substance to kind of overcome his trauma versus actually dealing with it. It's sad to see that happen to a character who we were literally crying over in the previous film. At least I was. You might just not want to admit it. It's an effective, if not a little predictable, emotional arc for the guy that I really enjoyed. It was performed really well. Madeline McGraw as Gwen, however, feels like she's stuck in that same role from the previous flick and didn't necessarily grow into a new character. There's a joke in Black Phone 1 where Gwen talks to God in a really vulgar way. I remember this landing really well with the audience I saw the movie with back in 2021. They play back this hit so many times, and if you want to know what I'm talking about when it comes to corniness, it is absolutely this. There's a lot more corny jokes and cheesy line deliveries here that were only sprinkled throughout the last film, where it's much more apparent here. Doing this with your new central character, I feel like especially doesn't work. Like, could you imagine Finney cracking a bunch of jokes talking to the Grabber down in that basement in the previous flick? Like, that wouldn't have worked. Yes, this movie is a totally different animal like I was talking about earlier, but it's just a little too much corn and cheese in this sandwich that should have a little more meat. I can excuse a lot of this though, because I think they were going for Nightmare on Elm Street's sequel, which was in no short supply of those things. There's some cool stuff happening with some side characters here too. We have Final Destination Bloodlines and Laurie hanging out with us playing Finney and Gwen's mother Hope. It's nice to see her in another horror flick for sure. Demian Bisher also totally kills it as the head of the campgrounds. It's weird at first to see actor Miguel Mora playing the younger brother of Robin who died in the previous flick. It only works because Ernesto is such a different character, a much bigger nerd than his older brother for sure. As you can see, I can relate. He's introduced by asking Gwen to go to a Duran Duran concert with him. I mean, that says everything you need to know. Look, Black Phone 2 is a little rough around the edges, but I still really enjoyed it, and it is without a doubt my favorite Blumhouse release of the year, where they have severely missed with me in the last couple releases from them, which I think is such a shame. I should have loved Wolfman from Lee Winnell. Are you kidding me? Black Phone 2 captures a lot of what I like about A Nightmare on Elm Street while also carving out a new path for itself. I'm pretty convinced that Scott Derrickson would make a fantastic and truly scary nightmare movie in the future if those rights ever get untangled. Are you guys excited to see Black Phone 2 this weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching. Please subscribe for more early reviews just like this, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.